The MLS AllStar First 11 is announced. The LA Galaxy move back into the playoff picture, and Steve Zakuani returns to the field. Next on The Daily. Hey everybody, happy Monday and welcome to another edition of The Daily here with Andrew Eby. I'm Nick Verschaw. We're going to start off with a big announcement from Sunday. The MLS AllStars First 11 announced during the Chicago Fire LA Galaxy game, and some usual suspects here. Landon Donovan leads the list with his 12th selection to the All-Star team. That's a record for MLS players. David Beckham also here, Thierry Henry, reigning MVP, Dwayne De Rosario, and the Golden Boot frontrunner Chris Wondolowski. So a good team so far from what we've seen for this first 11. What stuck out for you?
Well, I think it's the people in Kansas City getting out to vote. 3 Sporting Kansas City players in this All-Star squad. You have Jimmy Nielsen in the back. Maybe the biggest surprise, obviously, has done a good job, but a little under the radar. And then Graham Zusi and Aurelian Collin. Yep. Aurelian Collin, part of a defense back there that's not necessarily the usual suspects. No James and Olave. Jay DeMeritt going to partner Collin. We don't know that for sure. Of course, this is not the starting lineup, but he could technically partner him. Beitashour from San Jose at right back, and then Heath Pierce rounds that out. But generally a good 11. We'll see who Ben Olsen chooses to supplement that squad with. You have to remember that 18-man roster is going to be of his choosing, and then 2 more will be chosen by Don Garber on July 15th. But so far, a good start.
Yeah, you mentioned it. This is not necessarily the starting lineup for that game, July 25th against Chelsea. Ben Olsen going to determine his lineup based on tactics and health and everything. But you can find the first 11 as voted by the fans on MLSsoccer.com. Next up, the LA Galaxy in action on Sunday. They were at the Chicago Fire, a steamy afternoon game in the Midwest, but the Galaxy able to overcome the heat and the fire with a 2-0 win. Robbie Keane gets a brace in this one. That moves the LA Galaxy into the 5th spot in the Western Conference. They're back in the playoff.
Yeah, and they did this one without David Beckham and Landon Donovan for the better part of an hour. Robbie Keane, like you said, with the 2 goals, was not very clinical, it should be said. Had a few opportunities go one-ing, but when it mattered, he put it away. A PK, a little bit of a controversial one. Jalilani Baba judged to be inside the box. Once they got that lead, they did not look back. Chicago, not a lot going forward, just could not find a way to connect with Oduro and Nyarko up top. A couple mentions after the game. Maybe they were missing Sebastian Grazzini. Who knows? Either way, LA off that 2-game losing streak, back in the win column and back in the playoff picture. And
you mentioned David Beckham. He was actually at the men's Wimbledon final on Sunday. He obviously sat this game out with that 1-game suspension. Well, one of the moments of the year so far in 2012 went down on Saturday night up at CenturyLink Field in Seattle. The Sounders get a 2-1 win over the Colorado Rapids, but the prevailing storyline in this one, the return of Steve Zakuani. Everybody knows the history for Steve and the injury suffered against the Rapids last year. Back from that broken leg, made his debut here against the Rapids. It was an emotional moment.
Yeah, a little bit of closure for both Steve Zakuani and Brian Mullen. Zakuani coming on the 86th minute. Even Siggy Schmidt saying this is probably not technically the right move, but from an emotional perspective, the right one to kind of end this saga. Both of them trading jerseys after the match, had a hug. Zakuani saying, hey, it's time to move on. I've moved on. I think we all need to move forward. And that's the hope, that he'll start to get his legs under him and be that explosive player that we've seen in the last few years in MLS.
Zakuani saying after the game, the best touches of his life. Only 3 touches in this game. Did not see much action, but the best touches of his life. And the Sounders snapped that 9-game winless streak. Well, last but not least, another streak comes to an end. This one for Real Salt Lake. Carried a 4-game winless streak into the weekend against the Portland Timbers, but that's gone. Alvaro Saborio with 3 goals and a romp really in the second half for RSL after Portland sort of fell apart.
Through 60 minutes, kind of a punchless one from these 2 teams. Portland a little bit dangerous on the counter, but it was all Alvaro Saborio after that and all RSL. A 3-0 victory in the end, and Portland took out their frustrations a little bit on RSL. 6 cards, 1 red to Diego Chara, and then 5 yellows. A little scuffle after Javier Morales got kicked. Just not a great performance from them overall on the road. Doesn't get any easier either. They go to LA, but RSL has to be happy to break that 4-game winless streak. Hopefully they're on the right track with a big home win.
A nice win for RSL, and another tough loss for the Portland Timbers. Remember, they lost to the Colorado Rapids. Same margin, 3-0, so some work to do up there in Portland. That does it for us. Make sure you check out the latest edition of Extra Time Radio. The podcast comes out on Monday. You can find that on iTunes and Buzzsprout. And for all the highlights and all the coverage of the weekend's action, log on to MLSsoccer.com.